I was asked, what is my point of difference? What makes what I have to say about education any different or any more engaging than what people are already saying? My answer, I am not a teacher, I am not a researcher, and I am by no means an expert. But I am a student, and I am right in the thick of the system, making my way and watching my peers make theirs. I am a young Māori woman who lives and breathes her culture. And I have a passion for education, and I am striving to create a change in an area that is crucial to all of our lives. I come from 3 generations of educators who have instilled in me the importance of education. They have pushed me to be my best, they have helped me where they can, and they have guided me down a path which has never ceased to offer me opportunity. However, I cannot say that my experience has been universal, for I have observed my friends and fellow students in my school, in schools across my town, my region, and this nation, fall short of success and fail to reach their potential because they are not supported and they do not have the access to the opportunities I did. One of the opportunities that I was lucky enough to be exposed to was a national youth conference that brought together people from all over to discuss the issues that New Zealand is facing. For 4 days, I got to discuss education from a youth perspective. I heard new opinions, new ideas, I shared my own, and I came away feeling more inspired and more empowered than ever. UN Youth organised this conference and many more like it in a hope to provide a stage for youth to share their voices and have it be heard, for them to be exposed to civics to encourage active citizenship. They also offer students a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to travel the world, learning about how to make our planet more prosperous. I was enticed by this opportunity for more than the fact that I would get to travel the world. I was enticed by this opportunity for the fact that I would get to travel the world and learn more about my passions and see how other nations are combating some issues we see here. I was enticed by this opportunity because I was enticed with the idea that I would get to engage with experts in the field of education from all over. I was enticed by this opportunity for the reason that when I return, I could put myself in a better position to be the agent of change I wish to be. In January 2017, I set out on a journey with 19 other passionate people on the Global Development Tour. The Global Development Tour is a month-long education-based trip through Europe and America focused on the Sustainable Development Goals. We ended our trip by representing New Zealand on the world stage, speaking for our youth about these goals and about what we can do to make a difference. So one of our stops was to Paris. And in Paris, we visited UNESCO, the United Nations Education, Science and Cultural Organization. Here we met with Bernard Coombs, and he worked within the childhood education section of this organization. And his specialty was information sharing. And he shared with us the importance of information sharing at a quality level and how that plays into success and opportunity. We followed Paris with New York City, and here we attended the Winter Youth Assembly, a conference that brought together some of the most passionate people from around the world. It opened many doors to many discussions, 2 of which have stayed with me since I've returned. The first was a talk given by Arnaud Benavot, and he is the director for the General Education Monitoring Report produced by UNESCO in 2016. This report discussed education for people and planet. And he said, education will never reach its full potential to catapult the world forward until school participation and achievement rates dramatically increase. He discussed the importance of education to sustainable development and that education has the power to break the poverty cycle and create equality. I followed this talk with a panel session. These panelists came from education sectors all over. And it operated as a question and answer time, and I heard many questions and many answers about education from all different areas. Education in medicine, education in business, education in leadership, education in inequality. And I posed a question to this panel, and I said, in New Zealand, our indigenous people are consistently achieving at a lesser rate than others. How do we fix this? Now, after the panel, Nora Files, the head secretariat for the United Nations Girls Education Initiative, approached me, and we discussed this a little bit further. She said that in her role, she deals with inequality all the time, and that there is not one straight arrow to fix it. There has to be adaptation. You cannot force a square through a circle hole. So in this case, in New Zealand's case, when it comes to Māori education, there needs to be adaptation. There needs to be recognition for our Māori learners. She continued to say that learners will never succeed until they feel heard, they feel understood, and they feel respected. So I want you to remember two things going forward. The first, that for education to reach its full potential, achievement rates and school participation has to increase dramatically. And the second, that for students to succeed, they have to feel heard, they have to feel understood, and they have to feel respected. 19.5%, 12.4%, 17.6%, and 26%. These might just sound like numbers to you, but in fact, they are the difference in achievement rates for Pākehā students compared to Māori students across the board in NCEA from 2013 to 2017. I will be the first to admit that there has definitely been an increase in achievement rates for Māori since then to now. But I will also be the first to acknowledge that whilst they have been achieving better, so have Pākehā students. So our Māori students are continuing to achieve at a lesser rate. Our system is continuously failing our youth. And so I asked myself, why? Why are we seeing this change? Why is this trend happening? Is it because we have set in motion a negative stereotype that Māori students are waggers, they're dropouts, they don't like coming to school, they're not going to do much with their lives, and they believe that? A study asked Māori students this question, and they responded that their education and their learning is negatively impacted by the interactions and the relationships they have with their teachers and their educators in the classroom. So this disparity, when I say these results, you can almost picture it. And it doesn't stop at high school, it doesn't stop at NCEA, it carries on into tertiary education, where Māori students are underrepresented. It carries on into the workforce, where Māori occupy a majority of low-paying, low-ranked jobs with little opportunity to progress. It carries on into everyday life, where Māori occupy a majority of the negative statistics, whether that be health or otherwise. And when I came to fully understand the reality facing our Māori students, I could not quite pinpoint my emotions. Was I sad? Was I mad? Was I disappointed? Was I frustrated? But what I could pinpoint was that I had a desire to create a change. My passion for education did not come from a love for biology or for history. It came from an understanding that with education, I can grow more, I can do more, I can be more. That with education, we can all grow more, do more, and be more. As the foundation we build upon, the key to opportunity and a prosperous life, education must be accessible and it must be equitable. When I was away, I was fully immersed in the idea of the Sustainable Development Goals. Now, these goals are an agenda adopted by the member states of the United Nations for a sustainable future by 2030. Amongst these goals, there are things like education. There are things like health, business, clean air, clean water. And unlike most goals, it does not call on the rich and the developed countries to make all the change. It calls on the middle income countries. It calls on the poorer countries to take ownership of their place in this world and set out the framework to achieve this agenda. It aims to eliminate poverty whilst protecting the planet and promoting peace and prosperity. These goals don't act in isolation. They are all intertwined. And the UN recognises that to have sustainable development, economic growth has to be supported, but so do social issues. Now, of the 17 goals, of particular importance to me is Goal 4, quality education, ensuring that all have equal access to education. The UN recognises that education is the key to a prosperous life. Now, by 2030, Goal 4 hopes to achieve 3 important things, among others. The first, that we will eliminate disparities and ensure everybody has equal access to all levels of education for indigenous peoples. The second, that all learners acquire the knowledge and the skills to be global citizens, support sustainable development, and encourage cultural diversity. And the third, that there will be a substantial increase in scholarships for higher education. Now, yes, these are global goals, but that does not make them any less relevant to our situation here. For this just affirms that there are ways that we can mediate the issues that we are faced with that are holding us back and stopping us from doing more, growing more, and being more. Now, there is no doubt about it that there is a black cloud hanging over the heads of our Māori students. And there is not a one-way street to fixing this issue. We need to look at the bigger picture. Now, the way I see it and the way I believe it is that Māori education and Māori achievement is so low because there is not recognition for their cultural needs and their values. Based on observation, based on experience, and based on research, I've identified 3 areas which I believe we need to improve to see an improvement in education and achievement. The first, pedagogy. Now, if we can improve pedagogy, we can improve achievement. I am a very strong believer of this. So Student Narrative identified 2 things. The first thing is that teachers don't know how Māori like to learn. Māori like to establish very strong relationships in their family, in their community, and in their schools. And like I said before, students have identified that their relationships and interactions with their teachers have negative impacts. The second thing is that teachers don't, but need to recognise that everybody is an individual learner, that there is more than one answer to the question, one solution to the problem, and more than one person who needs help. These 2 aspects are closely intertwined and can be solved with the same solution. I give credit to the individuals in the programs who are in place and working hard to mitigate these issues already. Te Ko Tahitanga is a program founded in 2001 by Russell Bishop, and it is a direct response to the student narrative through effective teaching profiles, which is a professional development scheme that allows teachers to respond to their students in a more culturally responsive and appropriate way. It also allows them to co-construct the learning environment in the classroom so everybody benefits. The second area I believe we need to address is socioeconomic status. Now, this is definitely something we cannot fix like we can fix pedagogy. We have no control over one's home environment. However, the home environment has a very significant impact on education. Whether it be not having access to a suitable work environment, not having access to adequate help, or not being able to consistently attend school, these all have negative impacts on learning, on education and achievement, and create a disconnect. So how do we fix this if we can't fix socioeconomic status? Well, we engage the whānau. In some cases, whānau feel as they do not have the right or the qualifications to help their family, and we need to rid this thought from their minds. We need to engage them in new ways. Traditionally, learning was conducted within the family, often by grandparents while parents were out earning a living. And whilst we've come a long way since traditional learning and traditional teaching in the 1800s, there is definitely a place for traditional practices in education today. The third area that I believe we need to address is the school structure. Now, there are many different avenues we could take to discuss this, but I believe the one we need to address first and foremost is streaming. Now, streaming is a strategy which divides students into classes based on their ability and their achievement, whether that be below average, at average, or above average. However, when you separate students based on their ability, it's counterproductive for education for any person of any ethnicity. Our system is placing students on pedestals of varying heights, and it has become increasingly difficult for the students on the bottom to believe they can reach the top. And it's unfortunate to say that when you stream the classes, it's predominantly Māori students who make up the lower streams. So we are enforcing this idea that this is where they'll stay. And I believe that education and achievement for Māori is so low because they're so uninterested, because they're placed on this pedestal. This pedestal is way too far away, and we place expectations on them about here. So when they reach those expectations, they don't strive for more. They've done what we've expected of them, and they are consistently stuck in this rut at this low level when they could be pushed to do more, be more, and grow more. Abandoning the streaming system or changing it even will be the biggest and the hardest change we have to make, but it will be worthwhile. And this is not a new concept. This has been researched in the past by academics, and they found that streaming does not have the same benefits we once thought. The mind is a vessel to be filled. The mind is not a vessel to be filled, but a fire to be lit. And in some schools today, that fire remains unlit. As society's central way of passing down knowledge, as our most powerful tool, education must be accessible and it must be of a high quality for all. My passions have taken me from Hastings, New Zealand to New York, New York, and I will not stop striving to create a change in such an important area in mainstream Indigenous education, because I believe that Māori can achieve more. I believe that they can grow more, I believe that they can do more, and I believe that they can be more. Kia ora.